I'll first invite our session moderator, Gopal NP, Vice President ESG Advisory Services from Knight Frank India. Huge round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, for Gopal NP. Gopal ji has over 14 years of extensive experience and has worked on providing design assistance, net zero strategies, well green building certification, sustainability reporting, and ESG due diligence, including suggesting decarbonization pathways to government organizations. His notable works include drafting a green vision document for Lucknow Development Authority. He has undertaken and completed projects in Indonesia, Zambia, Bangladesh, Tanzania, and the Gambia as well. Ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause for Mr. Gopal. Can I please request him to be with us over here? Has he arrived? I'll quickly announce our speakers as well, and then in the meantime, I believe we'll be having all of them. So our first speaker, I'll be introducing all of them like always in alphabetical order. We have Jitesh Donga over here, Chief of Design, Mahindra Lifespaces Developers Limited. Jitesh Donga leads design, conceptualization and execution for the company's projects. Jitesh ji has more than 23 years of experience in architectural design and business management roles across residential, real estate, industrial projects and interior fit-outs, and has worked on more than 100 projects during the course of his career. Give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Jitesh Donga as well over here. Can I please request all of you to kindly clap and show some love over here, Mumbai. Thank you. We also have the presence of Mahesh Ramanujam, co-founder, president and CEO, the Global Network for Zero as well over here. He's experienced in both non-profit and for-profit sectors. Mahesh helps in businesses, communities, cities, buildings and infrastructure to realize their ESG and net zero commitments. As president and CEO of USGBC and GBCI, Mahesh set the gold standard for global green building certification. He future-proofed the LEED rating system with a more rigorous and ambitious certification process that included the overdue decarbonization requirements for a net zero reality as well. Can I please request all of you to clap and show some appreciation for Mr. Mahesh as well over here, ladies and gentlemen. We also have Shailendra Joshi, Head ESG Birla Estates Private Limited. Shailendra Joshi has over 25 years of experience in ESG, sustainability, EMS, net zero, environmental due diligence, environmental approvals, carbon accounting and management, climate risk assessments, embodied carbon analysis, and CSR. He has worked across various sectors, including auto component manufacturing, PEBs, automobile industry, and of course, the real estate industry. Give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Shailendra Joshi as well over here. And we also will be having Pranesh, Chhibber, Country Director, Canadian Wood. He's been associated with the woodworking industry for over 20 years in his entire career span of more than 40 years. He has been instrumental in starting many innovative initiatives for promoting Canadian wood lumber and its applications in India. Give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Pranesh as well. I request all our speakers and our respected moderator to kindly join me over here on stage. And give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. They're all here now, they're all coming, so we want that energy in the house. So can you please show some love and appreciation over here.
Much. Apologies, we were having a small session. But, thank you all for coming and thank you for providing this opportunity to all of us. This session will be focusing on the residential real estate specifically. And we have people from different domains. We have a couple of experts, who run the sustainability agenda in their companies. We have Mahesh, who has been instrumental in pioneering a lot of certification systems. And we have Mr. Chhibber, who is an expert when it comes to wood. So we'll pick their brains, and see, what is, the missing link, or how can we ensure that even in the residential sector that's been lacking a bit compared to the commercial, how can we enhance the energy efficiency, which is the need of the hour. So without wasting much time, I'll get straight to the questions. obviously the regulatory market in India, when you look at residential buildings, it's picking up with the advent of Eco-Niwas Samhita. That government is mandating, right? And the states will be adopting them very soon. But apart from that, I would want to know from Mahesh, how does your organization, help in the overall scheme of things, and what is your opinion on the regulatory market? So, will global net zero, help in the government, or is it something that people are looking at in isolation? So, what's the sentiment like in the market, especially concerning residential buildings?
Thank you, Gopal. Thank you, Gopal. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks to everybody for joining us. The first and foremost that comes to my mind is after COVID, or almost at the end of COVID, I saw some unprecedented commitments that were made related to net zero. So the first question that came to me was, after running certification for such a long time, how do we hold these people to account for their accomplishments? So I saw unprecedented commitments. So how do you know that those commitments will convert into implementation actions? And implementation actions will eventually drive the result that we are looking for, which is zero emissions. Now, while at US Green Building Council, I found the residential market was the hardest to crack, because who's going to pay for it? How much the developer can compensate for the residential consumer? So when you put these two things together, the hardest part to crack will be a net zero home. So from that perspective, I think our goal is to continue to nudge the regulation to really raise the bar on what we should expect as a minimum from the society. While standards like us, there are so many standards like us and so many certification programs like us that should actually guide to really push the envelope to what's possible. So our goal is to be market oriented, and the regulatory framework is to say that this is the minimum you have to hit. Because without that, India is not going to hit the 2070 target of net zero. And 2070 is not a good date, actually. We need the Paris Agreement to actually be able to be aligned with we should be able to align ourselves with the Paris Climate Agreement, which is 2050. We can't be 2 decades late, and that embarrasses me as an Indian, so.
Right. I think the point which Mahesh wanted to bring out is, of course, there should be a minimum requirement that all of us will have to do. And, affordability is something which comes into question. And these two are often interlinked, sustainability and affordability. So my next question is to the pioneers in the respective companies. I'll first pose this question to Mr. Joshi. So what are the key challenges Birla Estate faces in adopting sustainable development practices, and how does the company overcome them?
Okay. As a part of Birla Estates, the key challenges for Birla Estates. So I could not say the Birla Estate. So basically, this for real estate industry. There are key challenges majorly into real estate industries for sustainable development and practices. First of all, is skilled workforce. That is one thing. Then technological interference. That is second thing, which is lacking in the real estate industry. As this is very unorganized sector, so it is very lot of resources needs to be collaborated and put into the place to come up with the sustainable practices and everything. So those are the two things. Third one I feel is lack of, you can say, regulatory force to implement the initiatives in the real estate industry. So these are the three major things which I feel these are the major challenges for any real estate industry. And to overcome these challenges, to get a skilled man force and some technological interference, so maybe each and every company has to continuously strive for the innovations and disruptive technologies. Based on that only, the things will come into the picture and the process will go into the faster mode. For example, to come up with a building as a real estate, we need a certain time. So as far as the demand of real estate is concerned, we need to get a disruptive technology to come up the fast in the building with the sustainable technologies in the area of the energy, waste and water. So that is the reason I feel these are the important things in the real estate industry as a major challenges.
Right. Thank you, sir. So my next question will be on similar lines, but it'll be slightly more focused on life cycle assessment, which is something that has been picking up. Of course, green buildings have always been there for the last 15, 20 years. But I would want to know, sir, from you, considering the life cycle environmental impacts of residential buildings, how does MLDL plan to manage and mitigate these impacts from construction to eventually demolition? So, are you thinking on those lines? Have you started thinking, or are you started thinking and going even beyond something as new as LCA?
So yes, as a group and definitely at Mahindra Lifespaces as company level, sustainability is kind of a key driving factor. So starting from the site selection and the analysis, so that the data kind of estimation or the data collection is very important, where we go through hydrology, hydrogeology, even the flora and fauna assessment at site level. So that one thing is from the site level. Second is the design, how we can optimize the site resources throughout the design exercise. And one of the things is the climate responsive design, which we definitely take care in all our projects. So that is second thing which we take care. Third is during the construction, where the waste and the water, the two major things which we take care, and we have taken a lot of guidelines. We have created the guidelines and make sure that we don't have anything which is surplus. So selection of material, which we see that it's listed in terms of waste generation, recycle, reuse, and thirdly, the guidelines when we hand it over to the society, how we can optimize on all the parameters which we have considered while doing the entire project. So at all the three levels, from site selection to design and construction to handover, has been very well defined. So that we are taking care. And one more thing which I add is, as initiative, for net zero energy. So we have 3 projects which are kind of now at design and construction stage. 2 projects which are at net zero waste. And we are kind of aiming for net zero water for the last project which we have just started.
Right.
So that helps us to kind of take care of all the 3.
Right. Also, do you look at the embodied carbon of these materials when you talk about material selection?
Yes, so that is the next stage. Though we have not gone into that level of detailing, but embodied carbon is the next. Carbon neutrality is the target where we will take care of it.
Right. Thank you so much. Talking about materials, there has been a evolution in terms of materials. We have gone ahead with materials such as fly ash, bricks, and brick is hardly used in buildings in India these days. It's also taken over by AAC blocks, which are, much more energy efficient. And with that, I come to Mr. Chhibber, who specializes in wood. And it's a very interesting material. We know that wood has been, used by our ancestors, and not ancestors, but as far as 100 years back as well. And wood has been used extensively in all our houses. Now, and there is a terminology that is associated with wood, which is deforestation. So, how do you, ensure that the wood in conventional times, as compared to the earlier times, we can make use of it in today's times, and what are your action plans, or what are you doing to ensure that, deforestation is also not affected? So some thoughts on that to the audience will be helpful.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. If I may say so, wood perhaps is the only natural renewable material in the world. When you say deforestation as a concern, certainly deforestation should be a concern, but deforestation, why it takes place, we need to look at that. deforestation takes place because people do not consume in a responsible way. They do not think about leaving something behind for the future generation. So I would say it tantamounts to plundering the resources we have and not paying back the society. So, but if you have a sustainable way of looking at things, and we certainly can ensure that that beautiful natural renewable material like wood, in fact, we have a saying in British Columbia, Canada, where our organization comes from, that wood is forever. Canada today has practically the same forest cover as it had centuries ago when the white settlers first came from Europe into Canada. Now, this is despite the fact that Canada today is the world's largest exporter of softwood lumber in the world. It still continues to have the same forest cover as it had centuries ago. Why? Because they have very robust, sustainable forest management practices in place. There's a legislation, there is industry commitment to ensure that nothing is done in order to disturb the apple cart of how much actually you need, and then what are you doing once you take away from the forest, what are you giving back to the forest. So I have few statistics I would reel out for you, which I think is important.
That would be interesting.
To understand the context. In Canada, we harvest only 0.35% of our forest every year. You understand, I mean, that's a self-regulation of the industry as well as the government. So it's the public sector and private sector combined, because 95% of forests in Canada are owned by the government. 200 million seedlings are planted annually. That is 3 seedlings for every single tree harvested. And 80% of British Columbia's forests are certified. That is roughly about 44 million hectares. So 12% of the total certified forests of the world are in British Columbia alone. I'm not talking about the entire Canada. I'm talking about one province of British Columbia, which happens to be the forestry capital of, or rather the forestry big thing. So for the uninitiated, I must let you know what is certification all about. It's a voluntary process conducted by the independent third-party bodies to assess the sustainability and quality of the forest management against a set of defined standards. Now, these are very robust standards, very important standards put in place. So, Canada's industry, forest industry, has actually invited these international bodies to come in and certify their forests to ensure that they are following the sustainable forest management practices as expected. So I would say that we really believe wood is forever. I've given you enough stats and the whole thing that the Canada today has the same forest cover as it had when the European settlers first came in. So I think that answers your question.
Right, absolutely. And I have a follow-up question for that as well. So are we advocating use of Canadian wood for Indian residential projects? Because this session is all about residential buildings in India. So do you have forests in India managed by your company, or how do you plan to make use of this wood being used in residential projects in India?
Well, we have no control how the forests are managed in India. We do engage with the forestry organizations and companies, government, semi-government companies. We do engage with them. We do engage with the forest wood technology and all these companies. I wouldn't like to name them here, but we do engage with them. But we have little control over how they go about doing forestry management in India. But having said that, we do engage with our stakeholders and target audience regularly every year. We have several seminars and workshops conducted where we share our knowledge and expertise. We also share the best practices with whosoever is willing to listen to us and wants to know about how sustainable forest management practices can be done. I think after talking to all these people over the last few years, I must admit there is forward thinking, there is forward looking amongst the stakeholders here in India. People are getting concerned about global warming, about carbon footprint, and all these are buzzwords today, and everybody is talking about it. But yes, public by large is aware. Corporate bodies are becoming even more aware. Responsible corporate bodies, I would say, are taking steps towards this. And we very actively and very happily will share, if anybody wants to engage with us, to dip into our pool of expertise and knowledge we have on sustainable raw materials like wood. Right. We can give them a lot of reasons why they should be using wood without getting concerned about deforestation at all. In fact, building with wood is another thing because it does not take away the precious resources like water you mentioned or the sand, which is not replaceable. You know, wood is replaceable, and wood does not create any carbon footprint, whereas cement and all those things create a huge amount of carbon footprint. So I think we have today a very positive outlook towards building with wood in future. If I can conclude by saying that not only in the West but also in closer home in Asia, in economies like China, Japan and other places, Korea, etc., outside of the metros, entire housing is wood construction. You go to North America, US, Canada, you go all over Europe, you go to Australia, New Zealand, go to Japan, China. Outside of the main urban areas, that is the metro cities, you find that the housing is all wood construction.
Absolutely. So we'll discuss about the use of wood in residential a bit later. But I'll move on to Mahesh. The next question is, in a diverse market like, diverse and economically varied market like India, how do you address the skepticism surrounding the feasibility of achieving net zero, in residential buildings especially?
Let there be no mistake, to getting to a net zero home is not an easy trade. Right? It's the hardest part of the work. So one of the things I've always spoken about is that we cannot underestimate the level of effort needed, and we have to understand clearly the barriers to entry. So the number one barrier obviously is the economic feasibility. The number two is technical feasibility, the knowledge and the competencies that you need to develop a good net zero home. Of course, leaders like Mahindra are doing it well, more to come. Third is that awareness and education cannot be underestimated. That's the hardest part of the work. And then financial incentives, investment mechanisms, incentive policies that actually will penalize bad behavior but they'll reward good behavior. That kind of polarized financial instruments are very lacking in the market. And last but not the least, the enormous sense of purpose we must instill in everybody so that this is a collective work. This is not about just brick and mortar, that you'll stand up a building and you'll go. It's your place, it's your home, and your home impacts other people's home, and you're part of the community. And the whole context about how this whole ecosystem, this positive ecosystem should evolve. All these are barriers and opportunities at the same time. So how do you address them is that I've always felt that good case studies, good solid examples. You talked about your policy about getting to net zero energy, net zero water, net zero waste, and of course net zero emissions as part of the outcome. That is a very replicable story. It's not that hard if you pay attention. Maybe the variations are different for different projects, but the crux of that knowledge base is very well available today. And of course, enormous amount of opportunities have been created through government programs, particularly in India. I'm always encouraged by this new rooftop solar program, clean energy program, being able to give people more affordable and accessible health and wellness opportunities. These opportunities have been phenomenal. In fact, recently BMC announced a 116 crore building, a net zero building here, right here in Mumbai. So these are all encouraging and powerful stories. And builders like obviously Mahindra, Raheja, of course Godrej, there are a long list of people who are showcasing how this can be done. Now the question is affordability. I think you touched on it a little earlier. But it's not a zero-sum game. Intentionality is important and education is important, and then you build on that to really get to a place of really overcoming the skepticism. And I'll close it by saying, when I stepped in 2014, people asked me this question about, it's not possible to do a LEED building in India. It's not possible to do a green building at scale in India. Now look around, the work that has been done by IGBC, USGBC and all, over a decade, massive transformation has been done by the green building movement. So it's possible. But it is done one building at a time, unfortunately, but that's the only way to do it.
Thank you, Mahesh, for that.
Just add to it in a lighter side, in sustainability, sustenance is important because it's not one-time game, right? It's always,
Absolutely.
you have to be there, always there. And it has to be like it's kind of a part of your key kind of drivers, right? It can't be, I've done one project and then 10 projects are not kind of following any of it. So sustenance is very important.
Right, absolutely. It's like, I've heard people say, if I stop going to the gym, I'll get fat. I mean, it's a lifestyle change. That's not the goal. That's the first step. And what, these experts put across is absolutely right. It's an ongoing process, and that's where awareness also is extremely important. My next question is for Mr. Shailendra Joshi. So given the rapid urbanization in India, again, it'll touch upon affordability. How does Birla Estate plan to scale sustainable practices without compromising on the quality of construction?
Birla Estate is a company formed in 2016. It's under the Century Textiles from Aditya Birla Group. And we are into commercial and domestic portfolio, residential and commercial portfolio. As we ended discussion about the green building certification, so we have the policy to cover all our buildings, let it be commercial or residential, with the green building certification, either with LEED or IGBC. That is one of the things. And apart from many other initiatives which we have taken in the area of sustainability, let it in the area of the water, in the area of the energy and waste regularity and everything. So I would like to mention two major initiatives which Birla Estate is working on. First one is embodied carbon assessment and analysis. So our project at Niara, Worli, we have started doing the embodied carbon assessment for that project. And all the material which we are being used in the core and shell and into the facade and into the interiors and into designs will be assessed for the embodied carbon analysis for that. And the materials which are less carbon intensive will be replaced with that, and comparison will be done with the carbon emission, total carbon being embodied into the building. So, and we're making particular tool for that particular process for one building, and if it is, and after the successful completion of this particular project, it will be finished in another 4 to 5 months. This will be implemented all across the projects of Birla Estates in India. So, any residential, commercial projects which we are coming up will be analyzed for the embodied carbon assessment, and alternative materials will be used into the building to reduce the overall carbon footprint of the building. So that is one of the important things which we are initiated, and that is the next step to our goal for the net zero as a Aditya Birla Group. Second one is we are into the climate risk assessment studies of all of the properties. So all the commercial and residential properties are being assessed for the climate risk assessment, physical or transitional risk assessment. So, an outcome of those particular studies will be implemented into the design stage of the new buildings in those particular areas, and before handover of the residential properties, the flood risk assessment, you can say, for the heat, and then for the high precipitations and so drought. So those things are being implemented at the building levels and the commercial as well as residential properties, and will be addressed into the particular section. Third one is into the energy part, renewable energy. I would like to mention over here that 100% of our commercial portfolio. We have two commercial buildings, Birla Aurora and Centurion in Worli. Those are on 100% of green energy and the renewable energy. And we are working on currently to cover our residential portfolio also on the renewable energy in the coming years, so that all our energy consumptions as far as electricity is concerned will be under the green portfolio.
Right. Right. Thank you, Mr. Joshi. My next question is to Mr. Jitesh. So before the lunch break, we had an interesting session on, integration of smart technologies, right? That is something which I found to be, and that is the future. Let's admit that. So considering the future trends in sustainable residential design, like smart, technologies, how is the company preparing to adopt these trends, especially in the residential sector? Are you seeing demand for, such things in the residential market?
So definitely that's the way what we see it as, and so like we have adapted this practice a decade back, and when we started this journey, that as conscious call from the group and the company that all our kind of development should be kind of sustainable, and definitely green building certification should be there. So for future, the government policies or the guidelines which definitely is going to be more stringent, and we expect that to be stringent because then only it will be more effective. So that is one part of it from the government side. As responsible corporates and the companies and even the citizens, we have kind of now good knowledge about it, that like what it does mean and how it helps. So like for example, from company side, we make all efforts to develop as responsible development or sustainable development. But our business is such that in real estate, we eventually hand it over to a group of people, right, who are going to kind of occupy that and use it. So making them aware about it, kind of making what are the benefits, and most of them know that what does green building means and how its sustainability helps them. But running the program for them, documenting it for them, and helping them for next couple of years so that it doesn't kind of dies down. The intent or the implementation, what has been done, doesn't die down. So that, in terms of futuristic approach, we have started long back. And second, the products which we are seeing now, very innovative, like small things like particle boards to any other stuff which we are seeing, even in the gadgets. We have now rating system coming up for the gadgets. So many other such material and the technology we are seeing. And we have we are collaborating with suppliers, producers, even our peers in the industry, and it's more of a collaborative approach there, where how we can make it better. And many of subject matter experts helping us in that. So like the model which we have developed internally, like climate responsive design for all our projects. So though it's not new, nothing which is kind of, we can say hatke, but it is very much for us, which helps kind of do the best for next 5 years or next 10 years. And it is ever evolving. So right. In terms of practice, in terms of technology, and in terms of collaboration, we see that it's going to go a long way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jitesh. My next question will be to Mr. Chhibber. Can you just take us through some of the use cases in today's scenario for residential buildings, with respect to wood? Is it applicable for interiors mostly, or, if you can highlight some case studies where, houses have been built, what are the specific use cases for wood as a material in India? Are they any different from what they used to be? So that's what we want to know.
As I said earlier, wood has been a construction material of choice abroad, outside of India, in the countries I named and the areas I mentioned. But yes, I do realize I'm in the company of developers and builders here, and a majority of our construction does take place in the metros and the urban areas where you are prone to have multi-story buildings. And obviously, there is very little people know about wood as a material for making multi-story buildings. This is where I would like to share some information with my eminent colleagues on the dais here today, that if they want to make a multi-story building with 100% wood, is eminently possible. We have some wonderful technologies and techniques developed over the last few decades, which have enabled multiple multi-story buildings around the world now. In fact, I would start by saying that in 2010, we had the devastating earthquake in the heart of, I think it was Wellington or Christchurch, one of these two cities in New Zealand. The government did not rush into rebuilding the entire downtown area. They evaluated, they called the experts from around the world, and then they decided, because of the kind of plate which was running underneath that area, could possibly create another repercussion of a seismic undulation. So they decided to build with wood. And once they decided to build with wood, and it was a downtown area, you just can't have single-family homes in a downtown area. You have to have multiple stories. And then they called architects, structural engineers from experts from around the world, and the entire area was rebuilt using 100% wood. Now, having said that, we have some very eminent and prominent buildings world over, but I would rather restrict myself to talk about just one building called Brock Commons. It is a students' hostel, which is 18-story high, sitting on the campus of University of British Columbia in Vancouver. It has got 230 suites and about 33 or 35 four-bedroom apartments in that building of 18 stories. That building is 100% wood. Okay, and it has got 2 lift cores. That means 2 lifts are running up and down. The beauty of this construction is that it has been made using the latest technique which we call as mass timber, which is the latest in wood building. Mass timber enables to go in for multi-story construction. In fact, the god of building with wood is an architect called Michael Green. If you can Google him, he has a white paper somewhere floating on the net, wherein he has said that it is eminently possible to make the Empire State Building in wood if it was to be made today. Okay, and that's a very bold statement, I would say. But having said that, mass timber enables you to not only make very tall, but it also enables you to have very wide spans. Okay, so it's a wonderful material. It is 100% wood. It is natural wood. Only thing is the technology is called glue lam and cross-laminated timber, which is as strong and as hard as steel. Many airports around the world have been made using mass timber. Many multi-story buildings in the West have been made using mass timber, including Japan, Australia, Austria, and other places, not just North America. So I would say mass timber or wood construction can be looked at by my colleagues here who are running these large residential or commercial developments in their respective companies. I would be very happy, and my team of experts would be at your disposal to share much more knowledge and information with you so that you people can start looking at making a building, multi-story building with wood. We can bring not only the expertise we have with us, but we can also pull in and bring, we have access to prominent architects who build only with wood, design only with wood, and structural engineers who ratify buildings only built with wood.
Right. No, thank you so much for that information. I'll go back to Mahesh now. since we are talking about case studies, it would be good to know, if you can highlight any successful case studies or pilot projects of net zero residential buildings in India or abroad taken up by the global network for zero.
There are not enough, there are really, really good examples are out there, but not enough examples. This is the reason. Only 0.02% of the buildings in the world are net zero buildings. That's not a very encouraging number. Having said that, Mahindra's Eden project in Bangalore, that's a fantastic project. I've studied it. It's a good replicable model also. It's not that project is a showcase project alone. It's a showcase and a mainstream project. That is something that I like. Obviously, I looked at some good examples around the world. One of my example is in Florida. And I worked with this gentleman named Marshall Guberty. And when he started building a senior living community, I told him, Marshall, you need to build this all to LEED Platinum. I want each and every home to be LEED Platinum. These are single family homes. He said, are you crazy? My budget will not allow me to do it. I said, you must do it if you want to transform this place. He did it. All the 135 homes for senior living was LEED Platinum. That's a very, very tall order. Then I told him, now you need to build the first LEED Zero home, which was at that point of time the net zero for a LEED building. And he said, I'll become the first single family home in the world to become the LEED Zero home. Then I said, now you need to look at this new development you're doing called Hunter's Point, and I want you to go now net positive. Not net zero, but net positive. He said, how do I do that? I said, solar, battery, and figure out grid harmonization, and take this whole loop. And he's able to generate about 20 to 57% of energy back to the grid. Now that's also after doing all the other sustainable strategies incorporated into the project. So why I'm giving this example is it's possible. Now, where, how fast and how quicker, that's the problem, that predicament that we are all struggling with. But the good news is right here in India, we are doing it because to me, getting a net zero home is the ground zero for getting to a net zero India. So those are some good examples. But I do believe that all green buildings have an opportunity to become net zero buildings, but they need to focus on outcomes and continuous improvement, at least on the operational side. So that's a great opportunity. And there is a ton of platinum buildings here and gold buildings here, gold certificate buildings, regardless of what certification you pursued. These are two largest opportunities to replicate a quick example for scope 1 or scope 2 and definitely scope 3.
Thanks. And I have a follow-up question to that. So you mentioned all these regulatory frameworks. So does that sometimes confuse owners, or is it, like all of these are like taking baby steps towards achieving the final goal of net zero? What is your opinion on that?
The candid view is that 30 years ago, it was fascinating to see all these rating systems. But then since then, almost 150 rating systems have come. Local disclosure laws, local compliance laws, local regulations have also caught up to these market-oriented mechanisms. So to be blunt, it's utterly confusing. Because sometimes you make incremental modification and put the burden on the project. So instead, if we can all look at this and say we need to meet people where they are, meaning I've lobbied for this for a very long time, that we need to mutually recognize accomplishments. That is the only way you can actually raise the bar, right? So if IGBC did X, then LEED should recognize it. If LEED did X, IGBC should recognize it. As an example, I'm not trying to advocate for either organizations, but just as a thought. That is why we said we'll meet people where they are. We will not create one more standard, but we will focus on the outcome. What did these rating systems do for you, do for the asset, and most importantly, do for the triple bottom line, the people, planet, and profit? So I agree with you, it's become super confusing. And we all need to work together to reduce the anomalies and really focus on the outcomes, and that's an opportunity.
Right. Thank you, Mahesh. My next question is to Jitesh and Mr. Joshi, both of them, but I'll first go to Mr. Joshi. In terms of, so how do you address the potential trade-offs between achieving sustainability goals, at a company level and maximizing profitability in your residential projects? Do you often see that, ensuring that you follow sustainability measures in residential projects, does it always turn into profit? Or are you doing it because it is a mandate of the company? So does it make economic sense is my question.
Yes, definitely it makes economic sense. So it is myth that maybe it is not profitable once you go for a sustainable features into building. Like many times people are saying if you're going for a LEED platinum building or IGBC platinum building, then the cost of the construction will be higher than the normal building construction. So it is not like that. So you will get payoff in the good period of time. So for example, if you implement initiatives in the area of water, in the area of energy into the building, then it will pays off. Same in the case of the systems related to the waste management. So if you put up a waste management systems, waste collection, then waste treatment systems into the building itself to treat organic waste into the premises, to putting up the systems like organic waste converter and everything like that. So those things will be in turn up, and it is a sustainable case for a building as such, because if your manure is being produced from that system and it being used inside the premises for further use. Same is the case with the rainwater harvesting and water harvesting features. Many buildings are having a sewage treatment plants, residential properties also. So whatever sewage is being treated and generated from those plants are being used for the secondary purposes into the building. So those things are very important as far as nowadays in the coming time, this water scarcity will be there, and this temperature change and all those things. So those things are very uncertain for the power and water supply. So if the building is sustainable on its own for these particular resources, then it will be very useful for the building. And I think it is this is not a trade-off. It is essential, and it is now you can say a need of an hour. We need to implement all those things into the building as well as the residential and commercial buildings.
Thank you. So, Mr. Jitesh, your views on this?
No, I think the same line, I agree to Mr. Shailesh, but I see it in a little different way. Like we see it as an option. And that's why we say that whether it's profitable or not. Right? Because we have been given that option. कि आपको green building करना है कि नहीं करना है, right? You want to go for it. It's not an option for us. It is the way of kind of building, way of developing. So the way we have codes, right, for structure, for MEP and all of it, we have regulations, local authority regulations from all corporations and all authority. We don't have any option for that, right? So similar is the case. So profitability, when we say in money terms, definitely there are ways, and we have been getting it. They are doing it. Mahesh is working on it since many decades. And we are seeing that it's not the expense. It is actually helping us as we develop. In many ways, when we say the waste management or the water management during construction, even the energy management during construction, and for occupants, say, if you say the building life cycle is 50 years, for example, which is minimum we consider, for occupants, it is definitely profitable.
Right, absolutely. I think it's a win-win situation for all of us, and it's, it's imperative that all of us, whether it's residential or, towers or bungalows or whatever we build, I think we should try and instill all of these practices, into our lives, right? My last question to Mr. Chhibber is when we, talk about maintaining a forest in a sustainable manner, do you engage with local communities, and is it important, to address their concerns as well? Because, all of us are in this together. So just wanted your thoughts, how do you work with the local communities to make a forest sustainable?
Very tricky question, because we work to make forestry sustainable. When I say I mean FII, because we are a crown corporation of the government of British Columbia in Canada. See, we work towards making our forest sustainable there. But we do bring that expertise, knowledge, and a lot of domain expertise which is at our disposal directly and indirectly also, because we have access to experts who are only too happy and willing to share their knowledge. We bring that here. We share it with people who are looking at wood as an option, to use it as a material for construction or building with wood in India. Okay, as I said, and rather you mentioned that wood has been in India for a fairly long time. For centuries we've been using wood in India. But unfortunately, over the last couple of centuries, wood in structural use has disappeared. I mean, we have great examples of buildings in wood standing still. I mean, we have Padmanabhan Temple in near Trivandrum. It's a fine example of a wood construction still standing tall. You've got a lot of things in the hills of Himachal and Uttarakhand still made with wood. You've got, in fact, downtown Ahmedabad, you have, unknown to the even locals, there is a series of structures which is hundreds of years old in wood existing. But over the period of last century or so, we lost the art of building with wood in India. Now that was primarily, I think, what has happened is because, as I mentioned earlier, we actually are not paying the cost of the material used in our construction today. We don't pay the real cost of the sand. We don't pay the cost of the water we use. We don't pay for the cost of the roadie we use, because we are only paying for the profit of the contractor, transportation, that logistics cost, and the labor. The natural resources, we are actually not paying for them, which is very unfortunate. And because of that, concrete construction in India is perhaps one of the cheapest in the world. And that puts building with wood at a little disadvantage here in our country. So that means you have to have a real great commitment towards sustainability, mitigation of carbon footprint and global warming. You have to be a champion of all those things to be able to consider building with wood in India. But having said that, I must also say that in the last almost a decade, we've been here talking to the different stakeholders and industry leaders. We have come across a lot of people who have shown a lot of concern for all these issues I just spoke about. And we have put together some very fine examples of 100% sustainable properties with 100% wood construction. They are existing as institutions, they are existing as villas, they are existing as residential homes, single-family homes. We have a lot of those examples existing today. I can rattle off names and cities where they exist today in India. But they are far too few, I would say, because the mass housing, as we know, one, there is a lack of awareness what can be done with wood. So that's one of the jobs we have, is to let people know what can be done with wood. And as I offered earlier, I said I would be only too happy to engage with my colleagues on the dais, plus people like them in the domain of developing and building industry, developing and building industry, to engage with them and let them know as to what are the possibilities. And there are certain, of course, doubts, misgivings about wood as a material. We'll be only too happy to even address those issues. It is simply baffling at times to come across some very eminent personalities. And I do mention one particular incident which I recall. This happened about 6, 7, 8 years ago. And very, very eminent personality, and he says, no, I don't want to talk with you guys, you are promoting wood. Wood use. You are actually going against the tide, and you are trying to finish off whatever is left of our forest. And I said, if you have 5 to 10 minutes, I would like to dispel all the doubts which you have. In fact, forests have grown. If we talk about forests in the world, they have actually started growing back because of the consciousness which has come in. People are into sustainable forest management practices. Our own forests got decimated in the last century or so very badly. We lost a lot of forest cover in India. But then the government stepped in, I think in the late 80s and early 90s, we had two legislations brought in where our forests stand protected even till this date. But despite those two legislations, we kept on losing forest cover till 2016 because there was so much done towards deforestation of our forests, rampant logging and things like that. But then those legislations started bearing fruit from 2017 was the first time when we stopped losing forest cover in India. I mean, this is trying to cover some of the questions you asked me earlier. Since 2014, India is number 3 in the world to have recovered forest. Okay? So this is, I think, it speaks volumes about India doing something right, which is helping it to regain its forests. But we haven't reached a stage where we can start logging again here and start building with wood. Till such time that we have abundance and we have sustainable forest management practices in place, which will ensure that whatever we harvest, we put back and grow more than what we have.
Right.
Till such time, we will perhaps, as a nation, will have to depend on imported wood. And that's what's happening right now. We get about 700 million wood imported into the country every year, used by the construction industry, by the furniture manufacturing industry, and the other woodworking industry we have. So, all in all, I think from sustainability point of view, this is a very what do you call, promising and a very interesting material for people to know more about. And I'm happy to be here so that I can share some of it with you guys here today.
Right. So thank you for that elaborate response. And with that, I think we can, yeah. Sorry?
Questions.
Yeah.
Questions, if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand and I'll be taking the mic. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rakesh from Tata EcoFirst, and we've been partnering with Jitesh and Joshi ji on MLDL net zero projects. One quick question, because Mahesh is also here on the dais. So these are all net zero design projects as of now, and they are yet to see the operational part of the day. But very important is, how are we going to scale the impact these projects are going to create? Because what we've seen is over the years, over the last 20 years, we've been trying to create this database over here in India, which is open to public. So I'm asking Mahesh if that is something which you have envisioned for the near future, that we'll be noting down all the data on the platform which you've created, and we'll be giving access for all other users to make use of it, especially in the area of energy performance, water performance, waste, and also their overall EPIs and their carbon performance. So that is how we'll be able to scale the impact. So over to you, Mahesh.
Good to see you again, Rakesh. Short answer is yes. That's the plan. And that is why we are very much focused on the outcomes, right? Even for the design projects, design to net zero, constructing to net zero, eventually has to operate to net zero, right? Finally, that's what you will be tracking. And you're absolutely right. Data is still a very rare thing in this space. So the more data we can give to the market, particularly help them make the business case, I still think that the economic factor is very, very important. So being able to create the database around scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions in our lens, and then being able to tie some kind of a monetary component to it, and also give guidance to people on what strategies you must prioritize to be able to hit those outcomes. These 3 things we are hoping to align through our platform. You know, given my tech background, that's always my focus. And the second part is that in the modern AI world that we are coming in, this is one place I would like to really use AI well. You know, because AI can actually make it more conversational. Until now, in the last 2-3 decades, I've seen case study presentations. Now only the guy who presents understands it, or the team members in the team understand it. Nobody else understands that case study. And we have to stop trying to teach people the case study rather than make it conversational. Be able to query into it, be able to get feedback, be able to actually contextualize this for your own scenario. These type of modeling questions are possible, feasible through this conversational AI that we can build, for which this data foundation is important. So that's the vision we are plotting. And obviously, next 2 to 3 years will tell. I need more projects, so let me do a shout out. Bring more projects in. Don't worry about the results. We'll get started where we are, and we'll try to get to zero.
Thank you. So we have Gurmeet ji also from IGBC here. So my request to all is that let's transform the market. Jitesh spoke about IoT devices being implemented at homes. The costing needs to come down drastically. If we have our eyes focused on data, then obviously the market will transform and we will see it happening more and more. Thank you.
Thank you. We have bandwidth for one more question if, okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My question is for Mr. Chhibber, Canadian Wood. Really excited to hear that you're talking about wood here. A lot of our colleagues, architects and designers in the West and Singapore, all talking about cross-laminated timber, engineered wood for construction. You mentioned some of the reasons why it's still not picked up in India. People are hesitant, worries of deforestation, cost against concrete and so on. Anything else you think could be an impediment? I mean, skilled labor, does that, is that a factor at all? And is locally available wood actually, useful for the sort of construction that we're looking at today with this sort of scale that Mahindras and Birlas are doing? Good to have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you've actually hit the nail on the head. The ecosystem of skill sets of building with wood, that's what has been actually absent or lacking, I would say, here for a long time. When we came in, people were really not thinking in terms of solid wood, natural wood. A lot of work, in fact, was being done with the man-made wood products like ply, board, etc., and people really did not differentiate between solid wood or natural wood versus the man-made wood fibers. So we started a series of educational seminars and workshops with architects, with the developers from city to city. We today have, I'm very happy to share with you that we have been successful in developing an ecosystem where we have architects, structural engineers, builders, developers, and it's not a very big ecosystem, but it's a step, many steps from the time we started some 5-6 years ago on this route, that we have people, when they start talking about, can we do a wood construction project, and then they come to us, and we are happy to, I'm happy to say that we are able to put together the architect, the developer, and the contractor or the builder together and say that this is eminently possible. And we bring in that vital knowledge and expertise required to make that happen. And today we also have been successful to be able to have developed people who know what to do with wood. So there are many, I would say, mechanized factories who are able to produce something like glulam in India today, which is very heartening. And we are still working with some of those manufacturers today, very closely with them to, in fact, right now as I speak, we are talking in terms of an exclusive glulam and a CLT factory coming up in the eastern part of India because they see a lot of potential for themselves in the eastern side. We are hand-holding them, we are providing them the technical expertise, we are connecting them with the people who can give them the supplies, the machinery has arrived, they are working. And I think once they start going before the end of this year, they would be able to produce about 10 meters plus long beams and posts of glulam, that is glue laminated timber. Of course, the cross-laminated timber will be maybe a couple of years away from now, but glulam is eminently possible today. And glue lamp is what is going to actually make it happen for all the architects and developers if they're thinking in terms of working with wood today. CLT will come in a little later because that's one step next to the glue lamp in terms of technology. So I'm looking at a time frame of about 1.5 to 2 years from now where we will have even the CLT available. So that means you will be able to have ceilings and walls without having to resort to wood frame construction. That means you can have straight away solid wood walls and ceilings and floors. So a lot of work is happening. People are showing a lot of interest. Many people are making the pioneering effort, and I would say that I'm very happy that we are engaged with them. So the skill sets evolution is taking place. We have many more people today who can build with wood today than they were 5 years back. We have many more architects today who are designing with wood as a material in mind. Earlier on, when I started talking to these people, they used to think in concrete and then say how I can adapt it to wood. But now we have reached a stage where these architects are actually designing the building with wood in mind as the construction material. So this is, we've come quite a way, in fact, but still a lot to be done,
We have space for one question, I've been told. So anybody wants to ask anything, or would you like to connect offline with our guests? Anybody has any question over here? Anyone else? Please raise your hands if you do. I don't see any hands, so on that case, I believe we can use the same hands to clap and appreciate them for this wonderful, wonderful session. Loudly, please, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for giving your time and expertise over here.